going backwards first to look at Tulsa last week. It's a frustrating loss, for a lot of reasons. It's frustrating because you so wanted to send your seniors out the right way. You wanted to send your seniors out the right way, and the fan base that's been so loyal to be here, not just in this game, but for the course of the season. But it's frustrating because this game took us out of bowl contention. And that was a goal coming in with all the inexperience that we had and with some of the young players that we talked an awful lot about early in the season. We felt like if we could take this team to a bowl game, it'd be a great first step with our first year into Conference USA. And so it's frustrating from that standpoint. And as I said, with the seniors, I know how important it was to them, and to send them off the right way, to have a win with their last game at home, and to be able to play in a bowl game would have been a great feather in their cap for the great job that they have done leading this football team and their commitment and hard work and effort that they've put into it. It's frustrating because there were a lot of good things in this game, although sometimes it's hard to find the silver lining in a loss. There were so many great individual performances in this game. When I look at the defensive side of the ball and how well we played on defense and the effort that IK and Impali, Justin Ellis, Kendrick James, the way that they played up front, to see Tony Johnson step in at linebacker, a guy that's maybe played 10 plays a linebacker all year, and because of the injuries to Cobb and Schrang, he's thrust into playing 65, 70 plays in that football game as a linebacker, and I thought he played very well. Bryce went in, Kentrell Bryce went in, and I thought played a very solid game when Thomas McDonald went out. Pinson was playing really well till he got injured. Xavier Woods played very well. It was great to have Levander Liggins back, and to see Liggins and Darius Barnes and Bryson Abraham, and to see the way that they played on defense. I just think we had a lot of guys play really well on the defensive side of the ball that deserve a better result than what we achieved on Saturday. On the offensive side of the ball, I thought Mitchell Bell and Matt Shepard played very well on the right side at right tackle and right guard. We were able to run the ball a little bit, and I thought Kano and Shepard played well in the running game. Have to play a little bit better in the passing game, but they did some very good things. To see Tevin King back, even though he's not 100%, which was pretty evident when he broke away there with a lot of green grass in front of him, and that's one of Tevin King's part of his game is his speed. And he wasn't able to break away, but it was great to see him out there. I thought Blake Martin played very well. John Greenwalt, Hunter Lee, Jadrick DeCluitt gets more and more time. Sterling Griffin is continuing to play with very consistent play and making some things happen. And then those dirty dozen guys we talk about. I mean, we finally got a punt return going a little bit with Trent Taylor, and he found some green grass and had one of our longer returns of the season. And the punt return, Bo Feet, Lyle Feet are playing really well. You got Blake Martin, Jabari Pruitt, Josh Ross, Andre Wiggins is a guy. It's nice to call his name, to see him step up and play some on special teams. And it's frustrating because you had so many individuals that played well enough to win. But it's a team game, and it takes 11 on both sides of the ball in order to get a victory. And we win and lose as a football team, and that's why it's frustrating. It's frustrating because of the production that we have on offense right now. And that is the elephant in the room. That is our biggest problem as a football team right now, is being able to put up points. We've had some games where we've moved the ball and we've had some yards, but we just haven't been able to put up enough points in order to win football games. We've turned the ball over consistently. I believe there's only 2 teams out of 14 in this league that have turned the ball over more than we have. We're turning the ball over. We're not scoring a lot of points, and we're just not as consistent as we need to be as an offensive football team right now. It's frustrating because of some of the injuries that we're going through. Kenneth Dixon is probably one of the most vocal guys on that sideline, running up and down. I know he's passionate. I know it's important to him, and I know it's hard for him to be out. But with him being out, with a D'Angelo Brooks, one of our defensive tackles who has come along and is playing well. Connor Nichols we found out right before the game he couldn't play with his hamstring. That he kind of retweaked a little bit on Thursday, and he's been a big dirty dozen guy for us. With Pinson going out of the game, with Schrang being out, With Andrew Gilliott being out, it's frustrating because we haven't been able to develop a lot of consistency at some of the positions on the field. But you also have to talk about some of the guys that are playing through an incredible amount of pain just to be out there on the field and what they're overcoming to be out there. And guys like Dora and IK that are fighting through shoulder injuries but won't come off the field. Guys like Kendrick James, Matt Shepard with his back, Mitch Villamez, Kano. I mean, there are a lot of guys, Tevin King playing still on that ankle, Higgins playing on his. Just a lot of guys that are fighting through a lot of things to get on that field, and they want to win, and they're incredible competitors. And that's why not being able to win is so frustrating. It's frustrating to lose, but it's even more frustrating when you have a group of young men that are playing as hard as those guys I just mentioned and all the positive things that they're doing. Going into the contest that we have this week and moving ahead to UTSA, it'll be a great challenge for us. With one game remaining on the schedule and now with the bowl possibilities out of it, we realize this will be the last game for a lot of seniors, 23 of them to be exact, and 17 of them that have their degree. This will be their last opportunity to put on a Louisiana Tech uniform and represent this great university. And so from that standpoint, there's still an awful lot to play for. There's a lot of motivation with this football team. When I look in their eye, their attitude, the way they continue to compete, even late in that football game Saturday, when the end result was kind of inevitable, but to see that the way that they still played and the way that they still competed, I think there's still an awful lot to play for. The UTSA, I think Coach Coker's done a fantastic job there. He's a great football coach. He's been successful everywhere he's been. He has built this program pretty much from the ground up. It's a young program, but when you look at them right now, they're having an awful lot of success, and they are playing this game with an opportunity to represent the West Division in Conference USA, which is still a possibility for them. It starts on the offensive side of the ball. Their quarterback, Eric Sosa, is a very talented player. He's a 3-year starter. He, in 7 games, 7 conference games this year, he's thrown 4 interceptions. We managed to do that in 1/2 last week. It's taken him 7 games to do that. He's an experienced guy. He throws the ball very well. It's ball control. They make a lot of first downs. They eat up clock. They've got some very good weapons around them. They have 4 out of 5 starting offensive linemen that return. A lot of experience up front, and their skill. They've got a lot of guys that can run and make some plays for them on the perimeter. They're a very talented offensive group, and it'll be a great challenge where the last couple of weeks we have faced teams that have been much more run-oriented, where UTSA is much more of a pass-oriented football team. On the defensive side of the ball, they have 12 players back that have played for them most of the year that had significant playing time coming into this season. Their defensive line is their strength. They have 3 difference makers on their defensive line. They're very stout against the run. 2 of their 3 linebackers have a lot of experience coming back. When you look at this team, most of the 2 deep are juniors and seniors that they started this program with that have been playing for a number of years, and it's really showing on the field right now. With their experience at linebacker, and then I think their secondary, which is more of a quarter shell, they do a very good job. Their leading tackler, one of the top tacklers in the league, is their free safety, who's very aggressive, and with quarter coverages, they're downhill. Their special teams, they have a good punter. They have a very good kicker. Their punt returner was ranked 2nd in the country a year ago in punt returns. He has not returned punts the last couple of weeks. I don't know the reason for that, but he's very explosive as a punt returner. But they're very solid on their special teams. There's a reason that they're in the hunt right now because they're a very talented football team, and it'll be a great challenge for us. But one this week I think our players are really looking forward to. Questions?
Coach, looking forward a little bit in recruiting, you've got a good bit of commitments right now. What are some spots that you'd like to looking to fill before signing day?
Well, we've said going forward, there's 2 ways that we're going to improve this team from where we are. One is to develop a lot of the younger players that we have presently on our roster that are playing right now as younger players, and then to build recruiting around those guys. We're going to lose some very talented players as I talk about IK and Ellis and Kendrick James and Shaq and Daniel Cobb and Matt Shepard and Jeremy Graffrey and Kano. We're going to lose some very talented players. And so I think it's going to be really important from a recruiting standpoint that that we bring some guys in here that not only have an opportunity to be really good players in the future, but guys that have a chance to come in and help this football team possibly even next year, kind of like an Xavier Woods and Trent Taylor, the contribution that they made this year as true freshmen. So as we're going into it right now, recruiting is getting, it's different. It was a long time ago where the recruiting started after the season, and December and January was kind of the recruiting time. We are sitting here right now with really only a handful of scholarships left because of the verbal commitments that we have right now. I feel really good about the young men that right now want to be part of this program and the way that they can help add to our depth chart and what we're trying to build and what we're trying to do. But there's still a couple more left, and predominantly most of those are on the defensive side of the ball. We still have a couple offensive linemen that we need to fill with this class. We have a skilled player still to add with this class on the offensive side of the ball, but on defense, we still need a defensive end. We need a couple defensive tackles with those guys that are leaving that we just mentioned. We're going to need to take another linebacker and probably one or two more in the secondary. You know, you have to look at recruiting not just to help build for next season, but you're trying to answer short-term needs, but you're also trying to answer long-term goals. So you've got to recruit not just where your holes are on the depth chart for next year, excuse me, but where it's going to be next year. We don't have, like this year, we don't have a senior in our secondary. I mean, Ahmad Wallace. So you return, all your corners are pretty much back, all your safeties are pretty much back, but we need to take a couple safeties. So a year and 2 years from now, when those guys walk out, we've got guys that are sophomores, redshirt sophomores, ready to step into that. So those are the three things we're trying to do right now and looking forward and where we're trying to go in the off season. But I think those are some of the needs that we have to answer.
How important is getting a win in terms of kind of building some momentum for the offseason to kind of get that thing jump-started?
I think that's why I said we still have a lot to play for. We have a lot to play for, not just to say thank you to this senior class for what they've done and make sure that they have an opportunity to go out winners, not just for our fan base to create that excitement and energy in the direction that the program is heading, but also for recruiting, for recruits to have the opportunity to see where we're trying to go and how close we were this year, even though we weren't able to get it done, but to be able to see where we're trying to take this program and where we're trying to grow to. So I think it's really important. This is not a week where you say, well, you're out of bowl contention. Okay, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. You only get 12 of these opportunities again, and we won't have an opportunity to get on the field again as football players until next September. So we got a long wait after this game. So this is the last one for not just the seniors, but even for the underclassmen for quite a while. I think it's important we put our best foot forward.
You take the game, now that you're out of bowl contention, kind of using that to look toward the future and say, like, take a look at any specific positions or guys and say, all right, well, we might need to improve here, or maybe get some more younger guys in and see what they can do, and if not, maybe go out and recruit based on that.
Yeah, it's going to be hard this week because, like I said, you want to make sure you put your best foot forward. And there's some guys that are sitting out this year that I think are going to be really talented players that are going to help contribute. We talk about recruiting in the secondary, but I think Michael Jacobs going to be a really good young corner that's redshirting this year. I think when I look at Paul Turner, who's sitting out at wide receiver, I look at Carlos Henderson, who's being redshirted this year. I look at Cam Manning and Chris Aye, a couple offensive linemen. I look at some of the young guys. I look at Hakeem Gray, I think is really going to be a good player. It's just hard right now when you're trying to put your best foot forward and you know those guys can't play to try and get that spring ball work, which is what a bowl game gives you, is those other 15 practice opportunities where you have a chance to do that. So I don't think this is going to be as much kind of moving guys around for the future. I think that's what spring ball will be a little bit more about. But I think right now what's really important is that we do our best job to try and get this team ready to go find a way to get a win in the Dome down there against UTSA.
Coach, do you know how many, if y'all signed the 25 this year, how close will you be to your 85 scholarship limit?
Well, this year coming in, because of the number of seniors that went out, with the 32 seniors that went out, 31 seniors that went out, you can only replace 25. So when we came into this year, we were at 79, which is way below what they allow us. And people say, well, it's 6 scholarships out of 85, but you know, some people get in trouble with recruiting violations and they lose 3. We didn't do anything wrong here, and we're down 6. So I think it's something that it's going to take us some time with 23 seniors walking out the door this year. We can only sign 25, so it's going to be hard to make all those numbers up, and we'll make some of those numbers up with, there's some walk-ons on this team that have played this year that deserve scholarships. There's some walk-ons that we're going to have the opportunity to put on, and then you get in, if they've been here 2 years, they don't count as an initial. So we'll be able to get closer to the 85, but I still don't think we'll reach it this year.
How detrimental is that to a roster?
Well, the hard part is that's 6 more players that should be redshirting this year. Even though they may not be playing, that's 6 more guys that could be redshirting or potentially have the opportunity to play this year. And so from that standpoint, it's hard, but, you can't make it up. The NCAA's got the rules in place to make sure that people don't bring in too many players and try and replace a lot of guys on the roster. But when you have a big class like we do, it's going to take us, I think it'll take us at least this year, maybe until the following year, to get to the strength where we have 85 full scholarships. And it makes it harder, but that's what we have, and we're not going to complain about it. We're going to find a solution to it, do the best job we can to make it work.
Now that you've seen the game film, what was your thoughts on that targeting call early in the first quarter?
I think when you look at what they're trying to do with it, I thought it was, for what they want to do and the way that they described the rule, I thought it was a good call. He led with the crown of his helmet. He put his head down. I don't think it was intentional. I don't think there was malice involved. I don't think it wasn't an upward movement where he was targeting his head. It's kind of the receiver caught the ball and then came down to him. But the mistake that he made, and I think a part of the game that needs to be corrected, is we need to do a better job of coaching the helmet up. It'll help avoid not just the concussion injuries, but some of the spinal injuries from getting their head down. And so I think he led with the crown of the top of his helmet. He led with the top of his helmet. When you get that, you're open and you're subject to being called for it. So I can definitely see where it was called and upheld.
Isn't it a gray area, though, in a way, like you said, the receiver catches the ball, normally you're not going to put your head right down, which he did.
Right.
So say if he did, the defender does put his helmet down a little bit, but it's going in with his shoulder.
Right.
At the same time, the receiver drops his helmet.
I think if he would have led with his shoulder, with his helmet off to the side and his head up, and the contact was made to the head, I do not think it's a penalty, because the receiver did come down to him. I think where you get yourself in trouble and open yourself up to it is when you lower that head and you're using the crown of your helmet to hit something. So I believe if he would have went in there with a shoulder, this head off to the side to try and hit the young man, I do not believe it would have been a penalty.
When you look back, did y'all submit the tape of the no flag on the pass interference to the league office?
We did.
How important is it to have a guy like Kenneth Dixon on the sideline, greeting running backs as they come off the field, coaching them up as the game goes along?
I said one of the most passionate players on our sideline was Kenneth Dixon, and he's not even in uniform. But I think it just goes to show he runs the game the way he cheered on Saturday. He was into it. He was passionate. I wear a double headset that takes a lot of the noise away on the outside, and I still could hear him constantly talking, encouraging the defense, encouraging the offense, grabbing the running backs when they came off the field. He was an Energizer bunny over there. He was. I think it's huge, but I think for a guy of his stature with his success, it would have been real easy for him to stand over on the sideline and pout because he couldn't play. But yet, we talk about it all the time. I thought it was a great example for a lot of the younger players and other players on the team to say, well, if Kenneth Dixon, who's arguably one of the best players on the offensive side of the ball, can do it and he's not even playing, surely I can be that end of the game. So I thought it was a great teaching lesson for a lot of guys on this team, but it just shows, I think, the respect everybody has for Kenneth on how important this game is to him. It's not about Kenneth, it's still about this team.
Will he play Saturday?
I don't know the answer to that yet. We haven't even been out on the field. They ran yesterday and he was on the side with the trainers, but we'll practice tonight and I'll get a little bit better feel as we go through this week, but I don't know yet.
What specific things can Scotty Young and Ryan Higgins do to improve their game going forward?
It's probably twofold. I think for both of them, it's about production. It's about production. It's moving the offense, being able to move the offense forward. And whether that is being able to pull the ball down with it and scramble and make a first down, or whether that is to sit back there and throw a strike to a receiver in man coverage that's got to be put on this side because this side is an interception and the margin of error is so small. So I think it's about production. It's who does the best job of moving this team and putting them in the end zone. And I think that's different for both of them. I think for Ryan, as a young guy, he's got to have a better understanding of where everybody is on the field, hot reads, blitzes, where I'm going with the ball. There was a lot of times in that game I think our decision-making was not what it needs to be, and it's something that we've talked about and we visited with Ryan about, and it's more time in the film room, getting a better understanding of where everybody is, coverages, who's giving it away. That safety may be a yard off the hash rather than on the hash, and that may be a different coverage, and that's one of those little keys that gives you something. He's got to be able to do more work before the ball is snapped. I don't question Ryan Higgins' heart. I don't question his toughness. I don't question his desire, his passion, any of that. I think he is an unbelievable competitor. He is a lot like I talk about IK and Shepard and some of those guys. I think you could cut off their arm and they'd still play. I mean, they're great competitors, and I would put Ryan in that boat. What Ryan's got to do is play smarter. Ryan's got to play as a quarterback. You've got that ball in your hand, and if you're going to throw it 40 times, you need to know where it's going when it comes out of your hand. And so for him, I think he needs to improve as a young player with his understanding and his knowledge of the offense and defenses. And for Scotty, it's being able to stand in there and make the throws and be more accurate, and the productivity, being able to complete some deep balls where people can't load the box on us and not play down the field and keeping the ball in play. I think there's some things that they can both work on, but we have not been as productive as we need to be at the quarterback position to play at the level that we want to play this year.
How do you feel like those guys this year have progressed through their reads while the play is going on?
I think Scotty has gotten better with, I think, mentally with where Scotty is as a junior going into his senior year next year. I think he's farther along than Ryan. I think Ryan's got to do more work pre-snap read with where he's going. It's very difficult to drop back in 3 steps and throw it, that quick when you have to read from the right side all the way to the left side. And when your helmet starts going here to going over there to going back to the middle to trying to you can't go. You got to cut the field down in half before the ball is ever snapped. And so I think he's got to do more work pre-snap to get there.
Obviously, every situation's different, but 2 of your 3 jobs, you kind of started off as a 5-win team. I think one was a 4-win team. And then the second year, you guys really started to do some nice things. How much would you attribute with it being just the first year in your system? I mean, having an extra year under your belt in your system, what kind of, I guess, what helps and what makes the team better the second season, do you feel like?
Well, I think there are some guys that played well enough to win this season. There's no doubt there are guys like IK and Ellis and those guys I just talked about. They played well enough to be fighting for a conference championship right now. They played well enough to be playing in that game. And like I said, the elephant in the room is we haven't scored enough points. That's the bottom line. We have not scored enough points as an offense, and we are not productive enough. I don't think our passing game is consistent enough. We have run the ball well at times this year with Kenneth, without Kenneth, but we've run the ball and done some good things in the running game. But what we haven't been able to do is protect our quarterback, catch the ball consistently on the perimeter, and be productive enough at the quarterback position to be able to win. And so I think it's a lot easier in year 2. They have a better understanding of the offense. I've said this before, everybody's a freshman mentally in a new system. When you have a new coach come in, you look at a lot of the first-year coaches around the country and some of the struggles that all of us have in year 1. It's hard to go in and in 1 year put in your systems and get everything in place and get all the players to buy in and be able to, fill the pieces to the puzzle. Unfortunately, I thought we were a couple pieces short this year in order to get done what we wanted to get done. And I wish we could have got that done for those seniors, because I'm so grateful for them to the leadership that they gave this team, the work habits. I've said from the beginning, y'all have heard me say it all year, I don't know that I've ever had a team practice like this. I don't know if I've ever had a team that has gone out that wants it as bad as this team does and as hard as they've worked. We've just have not been able to get it done on game day. So I think year two makes it easier because those players now, you're not learning what to do, but you're learning more how to do it. And from that standpoint, I think that makes a huge difference in how many, 1 or 2 possession games have we had this year where we had the opportunity to win, that maybe that one interception or that one turnover or that one mistake would have made a difference, where all of a sudden you're sitting here as an 8-win team.
It seems like you got an inordinate amount of players that just refuse to come out of the game, whether it be a broken arm or a turned ankle or a shoulder or whatever. Is that something you haven't seen much as a head coach, and what kind of standard is that setting for the future of this program?
I have not seen it to the level that we've had it here. When you look at, I have told the story a number of times with, Blake Martin separates his shoulder in the first quarter of the UTEP game and rushes for 90 yards in that game and won't come out. I tried to take him off a kickoff team, and he got so mad at me. I mean, he started bartering. If you'll let me play more tailback, then I'll come off kickoff. And it was like, you got a separated shoulder, son. Sit down for a minute. But he won't come out of the game. What IK's doing right now, and people don't understand the significance of his injury. And I told him, I said, we need to talk. Because you've got a bright future ahead of you. You've got a bright future and has the ability to continue playing this game. He's like, Coach, there's nothing to talk about. These are my teammates. This is my school. I'm playing. What are you going to bench me? You're going to take me? You're going to take me out? I have not seen the resolve, the determination, the toughness, the injury, the number of players that we're going to have that are going to have surgery after the season right now, that are out there on that field playing every week, is a large number. And those guys, they want to play, but it's like they're football players, and this is what they do. They play football, and there's a small window of opportunity you have to play this game, and they're competitors, and I love them for it, and that's why my heart breaks for those guys that are pushing through those things, that we weren't able to get that done, and that's what drives you. That's what pushes you. But I do think that the seniors will leave a legacy here that I think will last for a long time and be a big part of the future as we continue to build this program.
Off the top of your head, do you know how many injuries y'all have had throughout the entire season?
How many games we've missed, you mean, like that? Because you've got some that have been a couple games here, like a Scotty Young and a Ryan Higgins, who have both been held. At the quarterback, you've got Tevin King that missed 6 or 7. You've got Kenneth Dixon now, really, that's missed 2. He missed the Rice game as well. We've had quite a few of them. We've had quite a few. I don't know what that number is right off the top of my head. I could do that research, and find out.
Is it more that you've experienced in other places? Because a lot of people, they publicize that, so-and-so had 20 season-ending injuries or whatever. We
Right.
haven't really heard a lot about it. The guys you named, we have,
Right.
because they're prominent players, but like you said, you have a lot of people that are probably going to have to end the season with some surgery.
A lot of them will miss spring practice because of the surgeries they're going to have in December. There'll be quite a few that will miss spring practice because of that.
Any estimated number on there?
I don't. That's what I don't know. We'll get with Keith as we get
Okay.
towards the end of the year, and I know he's busy trying to set a lot of those up now. So I'll find out what that total number is. I'm more than happy to share it. But no, I had a year. Last year at South Florida, we had a lot of season-ending injuries. We had a lot that broke their leg and were out for the year, those type of things. We've had probably not as many season-ending, but had a lot of nagging where guys are out for 3 games and then they're back. High ankle sprain seems to be the injury of choice this year, that we've gone through quite a few high ankle sprains this year, that those can take a long time, even when they come back. Like Tevin King right now is back from it, but he's still very limited with it.
In a way, season-ending injuries are probably easier to handle because you know exactly.
They're out.
Exactly, and if you have something lingering, you don't really.
Right.
know.
Well, I use Connor Nichols in this game because Connor's a big part of our Dirty Dozen and starts on all 4 special teams, and came back this week, was running. It feels great. Coach came to see me Tuesday. Coach, I've been cleared. I'm ready to get back on special teams. We put him back on all the special teams. At the end of practice Thursday, he said, I felt it twinge again. It's like, well, let's just shut it down. Let's see what we can do. Came back out here Saturday before the game. and he couldn't go. We're in the locker room before the game going, okay, if you take him off there, move him up, you take a guy like Grogan. Grogan was the number 3 on our punt team going into the game, and he ended up taking all the punts but one. And he was the number 3 guy going in, and all of a sudden he's your starter. So some guys have to step up, and that's why depth is so important, especially when you get late in the season like this.
Last thing, how do you determine the role of the zone read in the offense? I know we saw it kind of more earlier in the season. Is that game plan specific, or have you kind of shied away from it with Ryan banged up a little bit?
We've changed some things that we're doing, some of the technique things we're doing to try and be able to block the backside defensive end rather than read them. One of the reasons that we felt like we needed a little bit more in our running game when we went to Ryan initially, when we were going into that Kansas game after Rice, that we needed a little bit more athleticism at quarterback, and that's why we originally went with Ryan. And as Ryan has gotten banged up and had the injuries that he has, he's not the same runner. And so in the last couple weeks, we've started taking more and more of it out of the game and taking the read away from the quarterback where we can handle the backside end without that.
Has that affected the offense, do you think?
Yeah, it does, because, you've got to utilize one more hat in the running game to be able to block the backside defensive end or change up some of the things. A lot of the runs that you see Saturday that went for 8 yards or 10 yards and had the linebacker come in and make the play can be eliminated if you don't have to block the backside end. And so, yeah, it's affected our running game a little bit, but you got to be better in the passing game then, and that's where we have really struggled.
All right, thank you.